Money isn't just a tool. It's a mirror. It shows you who you really are, how you think, what you fear, and, most dangerously, who's pulling your strings. Everyone wants money. Most people chase it. Very few understand it. They slapped labels on it: currency, success, freedom. But to Machiavelli, money was none of those things. To him, money was influential and made visible. And he warned, if you don't understand how wealth is used to control, distract, and expose people, you'll be ruled by it while convincing yourself you're free. Most people don't serve money. They serve the illusion that having it will make them powerful. But Machiavelli defined power differently. He didn't care about riches for luxury. He cares about how money moves people, how it bends behavior without a raised voice, without a raised hand. So, instead of starting with how to make money, let's start with the harder question. How does money make people move? Rule 1. Money is not power. It only reveals it. You've seen this 1,000 times. Someone's income jumps. Someone gets an inheritance. A startup raises a round. Instantly, they get louder, flashier, more arrogant. Convinced money itself elevates them. Watch closely. The truly powerful don't change. Only the weak do. Money doesn't create character. It magnifies it. It turns up the volume on who you already are. The coward hides behind status. The manipulator becomes generous when there's a return. The fool buys whatever looks like intelligence. So don't chase money to feel powerful. Chase power, discipline, strategy, reputation. Let money become the signal of your control, not the source of it. Otherwise, you'll get rich and still be fragile. And nothing is more tragic than a person with money but no presence. Someone who owns things but commands no respect. Machiavelli watched kings fall not from poverty, but from the illusion that their gold made them feared. He knew real power is when people adjust themselves before you speak, not because of your wealth, but because of your mind, your steadiness, your standards. If money makes you loud, you are empty. If money makes you quiet, you are already strong. Rule 2. Wealth without mystery is vulnerability. Modern culture worships the flex watches, cars, designer chains, transparent screenshots of net worth. People treat their balance sheet like a personality trait. Machiavelli would call that exposure, not power. The moment people know exactly what you have, they begin calculating what to take and how to trap you. Power is preserved through concealment. Your wealth must never speak louder than your strategy. If the loudest thing about you is what you own, you've already lost. You've told the world where to aim. So, what does the Machiavellian do? He builds quietly. He accumulates through structure, not spectacle. He lets rivals believe he is slightly less than he is. The most dangerous opponent is the one whose power you can't measure. Let them underestimate you. Let them guess. Let them doubt. Better they think you're surviving while you quietly control the board. That's how you move undetected, how you strike without warning, how crowns get forged in silence. Mystery doesn't mean paranoia. It means force to fuel the measurements other people use against you. The loud rich attract parasites and predators. The quiet rich attract confusion. Confusion is leverage. No map, no attack pattern. Rule 3. Never depend on money you don't control. Here's the trap that ruins most people. They think earning money equals owning power. But if your income can be frozen, taxed away, restructured, or erased by someone else's decision, you don't own wealth. You're renting it. Machiavelli feared dependence more than poverty. The minute your survival relies on a system you don't control, you become difficult. Ask yourself, is your income built on someone else's approval? Could your lifestyle collapse from a single phone call? Have you built your freedom on platforms, bosses, and algorithms you don't own? If yes, you aren't free. You're decorated. You might be well-fed, but you're still in a cage. And the one who controls the food controls the lion. So the Machiavellian doesn't just make money, he builds fortresses around it. Multiple streams. Assets no one can see. Cash flows that don't depend on applause, trends, or fragile social networks. Income that survives silence. Security that doesn't rely on being liked. Because when someone depends on you financially, you never need to argue. You don't need to threaten. You don't even need to speak. They'll preemptively censor themselves. They'll apologize before you're offended. They'll comply while calling it compromise. That right there is real power. Not power through fear, not power through fame, power through gravity. Your structure has weight. Other people orbit it, not because you force them, but because your system exerts more pull than theirs. That's Machiavelli's definition of wealth. Not money, but influence that compounds quietly. If you don't learn to build that, you'll spend your life making money for others, living in the illusion of comfort while someone else decides whether you rise or fall. Don't just chase income. Build independence. Not the kind you post, the kind no one can see and no one can take. When you master that, you won't look powerful, you'll feel it. You'll feel it every time you walk away without fear. Every time you say no without shaking. Every time a room notices you're the only one who doesn't need anything. That's how money actually works. Not through obsession or display, but through strategy so deep the world calls it luck while you smile and keep building. And to see money clearly, you have to drop the shiny myths. It's not a prize. It's a lever. It's a mechanism for shaping choices, exposing weaknesses, and revealing loyalty. When you stop treating money like a finish line and start treating it like a pressure system, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I get more? And start asking, how does it move people? That's where control begins. Let's set the frame for what comes next. We'll dig into loyalty, distribution, and the architecture of dependency, the boring, unsexy parts that quietly decide who wins. Because the game isn't played on dashboards and screenshots. The game is played in silence. Who can walk away? Who can withhold? Who can delay? Who can redirect? Who can make an entire room change its tone without a single word? We've seen what money exposes. We've seen how mystery protects. We've seen why control matters more than income. In the next section, we'll sharpen the blade. How money tests loyalty. How strong players control access instead of chasing amounts. And why becoming unshakable without it is the most dominant move you can make. Money exposes what words hide. It's the fastest, sharpest test of loyalty ever invented. People will swear they love you. They believe in you. They'll never betray you. Until money enters the picture. Then everything changes. Because money forces choice. It introduces temptation, hierarchy, uncertainty. Give someone power over your income and watch how quickly their kindness becomes conditional. Offer someone a bribe and you'll see how quickly their loyalty turns liquid. Or worse, make money while they don't. Suddenly your progress stops them. Your growth feels like a personal insult. They start whispering that you got lucky, that you changed, that you think you're better than them. Machiavelli never trusted admired born in poverty. He studied reactions when wealth entered the room. Did people celebrate or compete? Did they lean in to learn or lean back to judge? Because money doesn't change people. It unmasks them. That's why the Machiavellian doesn't announce wealth, he uses it. He tests. He offers opportunities, positions, small tastes of advantage, not to reward, but to observe. If they grow arrogant, he withdraws. If they grow needy, he distances. If they grow greedy, he cuts them off completely. This is wealth as a filter. Not everyone deserves to sit near your financial fire. Some people are loyal only when they're cold. Once they're warm, they forget who built the fire at all. So your job isn't to hide your wealth, it's to watch what happens when people think you have it. Their reaction is your blueprint. It shows you who's stable, who's fake, who's dangerous. Rule 5. The weak worship money. The strong control access to it. There are only two types of players in the game. Those who want money, and those who understand that others want it more, and use that desire as leverage. The weak talk about getting rich. The strong build systems that make others depend on them to survive. Machiavelli never idolized gold. He studied its influence. He saw the real equation. The one who distributes the money controls the behavior of everyone who wants it. That's why kings had courts. That's why lords had vassals. And that's why today's billionaires don't argue, they allocate. If you want power, stop chasing income like a beggar. Start thinking like a builder. Ask yourself, what can I create that others need? What skills can I turn into leverage? How can I shift from being the consumer to being the source? The one who writes the checks doesn't have to beg. The one who owns the table doesn't have to ask for a seat. Once you control the flow, you don't manipulate people, they manipulate themselves to stay close. That's the real game. It's not about working harder. It's not even about earning more. It's about designing value that others orbit. The less accessible you become, the more valuable your orbit feels. Machiavelli never believed in generosity for applause. He believed in calculated patronage, giving strategically, not sentimentally. You give not to seem kind, but to observe patterns. Who becomes entitled? Who becomes loyal? Who assumes your favor is permanent? Those reactions reveal who's truly dependable and who's rehearsing loyalty for future gain. Rule 6. Always let them think money is the prize. This is how you win wars without fighting. You let everyone else chase the check, the promotion, the title, the applause. While they run, you study the terrain. You move slowly, quietly, patiently. You build position while they chase distractions. Because the true Machiavellian knows money is just bait. The real prize is power. Let them celebrate their raise. You focus on owning the system that pays it. Let them fight over percentages. You position yourself where you place them. Let them spend decades building careers. You build dependencies that outlive contracts. Money runs out. But debt, the psychological kind, the emotional kind, lasts a lifetime. The wise don't get rich to be admired. They get rich to build options, to walk away while others crawl for approval, to say no when everyone else is begging for yes. Machiavelli wouldn't waste energy flexing his wealth. He'd sit in silence, watch who shifts when money is mentioned, and then decide who's useful, who's predictable, and who's dangerous. That's real control. It's not about shouting your wins. It's about quietly shaping behavior through access. Because here's the deeper truth. People think money equals respect, but it doesn't. Money buys access. Control of access earns respect. When you decide who gets in, who gets fed, who gets funded, you no longer need to prove your power. The room adjusts for you. Rule 7. Use comfort to control fear. Here's the darkest insight of all. People don't work hard for money. They work hard to avoid losing the comfort money gives them. Once someone gets used to a certain lifestyle, a steady income, recognition, status, they become emotionally tied to it. Their self-worth fuses with what they can afford. So, you don't have to threaten them. You just let them feel a little uncertainty. Delay a payment. Pull back attention. Withdraw small privileges. Watch them panic, not openly, but moderately. They started over-explaining, over-promising, overcompensating. That's how dependence reveals itself. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He'd never raise his voice or issue ultimates. He'd make people wonder if they'd lost favor, wonder if their comfort was slipping. And in that quiet anxiety, he'd see who they really were, because most people will do anything to avoid going backward, not out of greed, but because their identity is tied to their comfort. This isn't cruel. It's structure. The Machiavellian uses economic tension as a mirror. It shows who can think clearly under pressure and who folds at the first tremor. You don't give people money. You give them a fragile identity that money sustains, and they'll do anything to preserve it. That's how empires were maintained, not through blood, but through salaries, ceremonies, and symbols of privilege that could vanish at any time. When someone believes their comfort is earned but secretly fragile, you control them without force. Their loyalty becomes self-imposed. That's why Machiavelli built systems, not speeches. He didn't need obedience. He designed environments where obedience was the only rational choice. Rule 8. The rich aren't respected, they're measured. We've been sold a lie. That money automatically earns admiration. That people will treat you better than the richer you become. But Machiavelli saw through that fantasy centuries ago. When you walk into a room flaunting wealth, you're not inspiring anyone. You're inviting calculation. They measure you. They measure your taste, your spending, your excesses. They study what you have, what you waste, what it would take to replace you. Wealth doesn't attract admiration from the powerful. It attracts attention from the hungry. The strong don't praise your possessions. They assess your accuracy. The truth, the only people impressed by your lifestyle are the ones who still dream of having one. The powerful don't want your car. They want your control. They're not dazzled by your success. They're dissecting your weaknesses. So when you start living for admiration, when your goal becomes looking rich instead of moving wisely, you open yourself to predators. The moment people feel your need to be admired, they can trap you with it. They'll feed your ego while quietly planning your fall. Machiavelli would say, never show the world how badly you need its approval. The instant you do, you hand them a lever. They'll pull it whenever they want to make you dance. So how does the Machiavellian display wealth? He doesn't. He demonstrates discipline, not dollars. Precision, no purchases. Influence, not indulgence. He might own everything, but no one can tell. That's what makes him dangerous. Because when no one can see the full extent of your empire, no one can calculate how to breach it. The quiet rich man is the one person afraid, not because of what he owns, but because they can't tell how deep his reach goes. He never needed your validation, and he doesn't fear your judgment. That's the posture of real power, control without performance. Rule 9. Become unshakable without money. This is where everything shifts. Most people are disenchanted of losing money, not because of the loss itself, but because it would mean losing their identity. The Machiavellian masters what everyone else avoids: non-attachment. He earns money, uses money, multiplies it, but he never becomes owned by it. Because the most powerful message you can send in any situation, business, politics, love, is this: I can walk away, and you can't. That single truth rearranges the entire balance of power. When others need something to stay afloat, a job, approval, lifestyle, relationship, you, the one who can walk away, control the frame. People chase those who don't need them. It's not arrogance, it's gravity. When you no longer fear losing money, your decisions become cleaner. You negotiate differently. You choose differently. You stop reacting emotionally and start moving strategically. Everyone else chases certainty. You created it. Machiavelli would never tie his identity to his gold. He'd tie it to his architecture, his mind, his structure, his patience. Because even if his fortune disappears, he could rebuild it, brick by brick, using the same discipline that made him powerful in the first place. That's why detachment is the highest form of strength. The rich man says, "I have everything." The powerful man says, "I can rebuild everything." So, the moment you stop fearing financial loss, you stop being controlled. You become unreachable by manipulation. You stop trying to impress and start observing. You realize most people don't want wealth, they want safety. And once you no longer crave safety, you're no longer predictable. That's what terrifies manipulators. Non-attachment doesn't mean indifference. It means exactly using money as a tool, not as therapy. It's about knowing that your value doesn't rise and fall with your bank account. Because when the world realizes you're unshakable without wealth, it starts moving around you. Money, in truth, isn't mystical or magical. It's mechanical. It's a machine powered by emotion, fear, envy, scarcity, desire. The ones who master it are those who stop feeling desperate around it. They don't worship it or chase it. They design around it. They use it like a chess piece, not a crown. When you reach that state, you stop thinking about getting rich. You start thinking about control flow. You start seeing what Machiavelli saw, that money is just a present, a tool to direct energy, loyalty, and behavior. And the real game isn't about accumulation. It's about positioning. You can have all the money in the world and still be powerless if you don't control where it flows. But if you can direct that flow, if you can decide who gets funded, who gets paid, who gets ignored, suddenly the world bends around your influence. That brings us to one of the most dangerous principles of all. Rule 10. He who controls the flow controls the frame. Machiavelli never trusted appearances. He knew the man holding the treasure isn't the one with real power. The one who decides where it goes, that's the ruler. You can be rich and still be replaceable. You can be wealthy and still be disposable. But when you control distribution, when the attention, the access, the value streams bend toward you, people obey, not out of loyalty, but out of need. You don't want to be the richest in the room. You want to be the one who signs the checks, the one who decides the budget, the one who directs the spotlight. Because when your hand is tied to their livelihood, silence becomes a weapon. A pause becomes pressure. Your absence becomes punishment. That's why kings didn't just hoard gold, they built dependencies. They understood a law of power most people still ignore. People don't follow wealth, they follow the source of it. And that source must always appear limited, mysterious, unpredictable. You never give everyone access. You never explain your methods. You let people guess, wonder, worry. Because uncertainty breeds obedience. When they can't measure how much you have, or when it might stop flowing, they treat you carefully. Not because you're cruel, but because they don't know how to replace you. That's not just financial leverage. That's behavioral control. So don't aim to be admired for what you have. Aim to be needed for what you provide. Because when people depend on you economically, emotionally, or psychologically, their loyalty doesn't need to be demanded. It sustains itself. Rule 11. Never teach them the system. Let them depend on the outcome. In today's world, everyone wants to be a guru. Everyone wants to sell a blueprint, a course, a tutorial, something that reveals how they made it. But the Machiavellian will never expose his full system. He'd let people benefit from his results, but never understand his process. Because once they know the process, they can replicate it. And once they can replicate it, they no longer need you. That's the hidden truth about power. If people understand how you built it, they can rebuild it without you. So what does the strategist do? He gives just enough. Enough to keep people engaged. Enough to make them believe they're part of something important. Enough to keep their faith alive, but never enough to give them independence. You provide value, but not structure. You show results, but not replicability. That's how old dynasties and secret orders maintain control. The elite didn't just have wealth. They had mystery. They passed down control like an inheritance, while the public watched from outside the walls. The same principle applies today. When your knowledge becomes mysterious, your influence multiplies. The less people understand how you operate, the more mythical your success becomes. And once your image becomes mythic, people stop questioning you. They start believing you. That belief is psychological currency. They'll trust your word, echo your ideas, follow your guidance, not because they fully understand it, but because it works. You stop being a source of information and become a source of meaning. That's a shift most never reach. Because when you control meaning, you no longer have competitors. You have followers. People stop trying to match you and start trying to stay close to you. That's the moment you become irreplaceable. So stop broadcasting every move. Stop explaining your methods. Let the results speak, but leave your strategy in the dark. Give the impression of effortlessness, like your success is part of your nature, not your plan. The more people believe your power is instinctive, the fewer they'll ever attempt to decode it. Rule 12. When you give, attach invisible strings. Machiavelli saw generosity as leverage, not kindness. He never gave to be liked. He gave to create obligation. Because people rarely forget their pain, but they never forget the hand that lifted them from it. When you help someone in a moment of weakness, something deep inside them shifts. Gratitude turns into debt. And even if they never say it, they feel it. They'll rationalize it as loyalty, but it's dependency disguised as devotion. That's how real alliances are built, not through promises, but through moments of salvation. The trick, though, is subtle. Your help must feel rare, specific, and irreplaceable. You don't announce it. You don't ask for thanks. You don't repeat the favor unless the dynamic power remains intact. Because repetition breeds expectation. When generosity becomes routine, it loses its weight. True Machiavellian charity happens once, in a way that leaves a mark. It becomes a sacred memory. Something the other person replays when making decisions, thinking, I owe them. That unspoken thought, that silent psychological string, is what ties people to you for years. You don't have to remind them. You don't have to demand repayment. They'll police themselves. They'll hesitate before crossing you, because they remember the moment you appeared when no one else did. This is what Machiavelli calls quiet dominance. Power built not on threats, but on emotional engineering. You shape the economy of gratitude, guilt, and memory around you. And once that system is built, your control becomes invisible. The most effective power never announces itself. It moves through influence, not orders, through presence, no noise. A favor at the right moment is worth more than 1,000 commands. So, the next time you give, ask yourself, what do I want this gesture to mean? Am I giving to feel good or giving to create gravity? Because the second kind never fades. When you learn this, you stop chasing alliances. You start building ecosystems. You become the emotional center of other people's decisions. And when they navigate life while keeping you in mind, you don't have to control them. They control themselves for you. Every powerful figure in history understood this. Kings, magnates, empires. They didn't rule with gold alone. They ruled with the memory of gold. They gave just enough to remind people of their dependence, but not enough to make them free. Even today, corporations, leaders, and influencers all use this same structure. Give value, hold mystery, create dependency. It's not evil. It's architecture. Because the mind, once helped and tethered, organizes itself around loyalty. That's why the most powerful generosity feels like grace. It's unforgettable, unreplicable, and unrepeated. It lingers, and the person who receives it will feel it echo for years. That's the art of tying invisible strings, shaping people's perception of you so deeply that your absence still influences their actions. Rule 13. Build a life where money is present, but never loud. This is the final evolution, where you stop chasing the appearance of power and start living inside it. The difference between the rich and the powerful is simple. The rich talk about money. The powerful use it without mentioning it. The rich measure life by income, expenses, deals. The powerful move through rooms where wealth is the foundation, not the conversation. They don't flaunt what they have, because their influence isn't measured in possessions. It's measured in how quietly they can shift outcomes. Machiavelli's ultimate vision wasn't luxury, it was balanced. He believes that true mastery over wealth is when you no longer need to show it, defend it, or even think about it. You've built systems that move on their own. You've surrounded yourself with people who understand value instinctively. When you reach that level, your presence alone signals authority. You don't announce success, you embody it. You speak less, but every word lands heavy. You act slower, but everything you touch multiplies. You stop competing because you've built the game board itself. Money, at that point, becomes what it was always meant to be, a shadow behind every move. It's not loud, not frantic, not desperate. It's simply there, echoing your structure, your restraint, your silence. This is what separates those who merely get rich from those who become untouchable. The former uses money to feel powerful. The latter uses money to design freedom. This is where the journey ends, and true power begins, where money stops being a finish line and becomes the invisible mechanism behind every move you make. To most, wealth is something to show. To the Machiavellian, wealth is something to shape. It's not about the numbers in your account. It's about how those numbers control the rhythm of the world around you. For Machiavelli, money was never an object. It was architecture, a structure built not to impress, but to endure. And when you understand that, you stop asking, how do I make more? And start asking, how can I make it move for me? The mirror of power. Money has always been misunderstood. People think it gives power, but Machiavelli knew it merely reflects it. It's a mirror showing who you already are, your habits, your patience, your hunger for validation. Most chase money to fix insecurity. They think riches will heal the wound of insignificance. But when they finally get it, the wound remains just gilded in luxury. The Machiavellian approaches money differently. He sees it as a behavioral test. He watches how people act when they get it, lose it, or see someone else hold it. He studies what they sacrifice for it, because that reveals what controls them. Money itself isn't power. The ability to remain unchanged by it is. When you can hold wealth without losing discipline or detachment, you've already surpassed 99% of people who ever touch it, too. Invisibility is protection. In today's world, everyone wants to be seen, flashing their lifestyle like proof of existence. Machiavelli would see that as weakness disguised as confidence. Because once people can measure you, they can target you. The strong don't show their empire. They conceal it. They move like fog, present, but never graspable. The more layers between you and your resources, the less control others have over you. Modern wealth without secrecy is a liability. The moment people know what you own, they begin plotting how to reach it. But when they can't measure you, they can't manipulate you. You become unpredictable, and unpredictability is the highest form of safety. Machiavelli's wisdom was simple. Power is preserved through mystery. He'd rather be underestimated than famous, because fame invites envy, and envy invites sabotage. Quiet wealth, however, disorients enemies. They can't attack what they can't define. So the wise build fortresses that no one sees, assets under layers of structure, income from invisible systems, control without exposure. It's not paranoia, it's preservation. 3. Dependence is the core of control. The heart of Machiavellian economics is dependency. Whoever people rely on rules them. You don't need to demand loyalty if you engineer need. When others depend on your approval, your resources, or your network, they obey naturally, not out of fear, but out of survival. That's how kings ruled without constant war. They fed people just enough comfort that rebellion felt too costly. That same law governs business, relationships, and society today. Dependence equals gravity. And gravity makes people orbit you without realizing it. The modern version of this isn't manipulation. It's architecture. Build systems others benefit from: jobs, platforms, protection, knowledge, and they'll protect you in return. They'll defend your power because your existence sustains theirs. Machiavelli never believed in enslaving the body. He believed in capturing the behavior. When someone ties their security to your presence, they'll police themselves to keep you pleased. And that's control, not through threats, but through design. 4. Detachment is the ultimate freedom. Most people fear losing money more than they fear losing dignity. That's why they're controlled. The Machiavellian knows that real power begins when you can walk away. The ability to detach from money, relationships, and comfort is the foundation of authority. He earns money, but never becomes its servant. He spends strategically, not emotionally. He builds systems that earn while he sleeps, but could start again if all burned tomorrow. Because what made him powerful wasn't his possessions, it was his process. When you can lose everything and rebuild it, you become immune to manipulation. You stop making decisions out of fear. You negotiate from strength. You become the calm center in a world ruled by panic. That's the secret most never learn. Money can't control the man who no longer fears its absence. Detachment makes you unshakable, and unshakable men control those who depend on reassurance. Machiavelli's true wealth was psychological. It was the serenity of knowing that no one could buy his reaction. 5. Control the flow, control the frame. He who controls the flow, controls the frame. That was Machiavelli's quiet rule of kingdoms, courts, and companies alike. The richest man isn't the one with the biggest vault. It's the one who decides where the vault opens. When you control the distribution of value, money, access, opportunity, people adapt to your rhythm. You don't chase validation. You define it. This is how real influence operates. You don't need to convince anyone. You simply decide where resources go. The more people rely on your flow, the more invisible your control becomes. In this state, silence becomes signal. A pause becomes pressure. A delay becomes discipline. The less you say, the more people interpret, and that interpretation becomes their obedience. Kings did this with gold. Modern strategists do it with information, credit, access, or reputation. The resource doesn't matter. Control of flow always means control of narrative. So don't ask how to make money. Ask how to move it. because the one who moves it shapes the frame of every transaction around them. 6. Strategic generosity and invisible strings. Machiavelli believed generosity was never kindness, it was calculation. He didn't give to feel good. He gave to create obligation. When you help someone in their moment of crisis, you own a part of their story. They may never say it, but they'll remember it every time your name appears. Gratitude fades. Debt of emotion doesn't. But generosity must be rare. If you give too often, it becomes routine expected, not respected. The key is precision. Give once when it matters most and disappear. That act becomes legendary in their mind. Your goal isn't to make people thank you. It's to make them think of you when they face uncertainty. The Machiavellian never reminds others of what they owe. He lets silence do the reminding. This is quiet dominance. Influence maintained through memory, not control. People who feel indebted to you will hesitate before crossing you. They'll defend your reputation when you're not present. That's how empires sustain themselves without armies, through emotional gravity. The moment people start thinking, without him, I wouldn't be here, your power has already multiplied. 7. The final equilibrium. At the end of this path, money becomes background noise. It no longer commands your attention because it already serves your purpose. You stop chasing trends, attention, or competition. You move in stillness, controlling the rhythm of rooms without raising your voice. The wealthy talk about money. The powerful use it like oxygen unseen, necessary and silent. You've built systems that protect you without effort, relationships that obey without words, and wealth that moves without your touch. That's the state Machiavelli admired, the sovereignty of structure. In this stage, your presence becomes a signal. People sense that your calm isn't arrogance, it's insulation. You've mastered what they still chase. You don't prove power, you embody it. That's when you reach financial equilibrium, when you no longer react to loss, celebrate gain, or compare success. You operate from principle, not emotion. You've escaped the cycle of fear and pride that rules others. 8. The closing lesson. Most people chase wealth because they want freedom. Machiavelli built wealth because he wanted control of freedom itself. He understood that true dominance isn't about taking from others. It's about designing systems so complete that even chaos works in your favor. Money, in his philosophy, was never the treasure, it was the tool, the mirror, the weapon that exposes weakness and amplifies character. And the final lesson is this: when you stop worshiping money, you begin commanding it. When you stop fearing loss, you begin shaping gain. When you no longer need to be seen, the world starts watching anyway. That's the paradox of Machiavellian power. When you detach from wealth, wealth obeys you. When you remain silent, your presence grows louder. When you give rarely but strategically, loyalty becomes automatic. So don't chase applause. Don't chase validation. Build architecture. Build systems. Build silence that bends the world toward you. Because the one who can walk away and still make the room adjust, that's the one who's mastered the game. That's how money truly works. Not as currency, not as luck, but as reflection, a silent extension of your mind, your restraint, and your unspoken dominance. That was Machiavelli's final law. Money doesn't make you powerful, you make money powerful. And once you understand that, you'll never need to chase it again.